What is going on, everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster, and I want to thank you for joining me for another replay battle. Today I've got a 3 versus 5 scenario that is fresh from HeathHorton's Discord. Now, if you guys are not familiar with him, he runs a scenario like roleplay campaign known as the Spawn of Sauron campaign. Although I believe he's taking a little bit of a break at the moment, and Esgal Nordir has taken over for the most part. But in any case, this is one of those battles from his story-based campaign, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it. So without any further ado, let's get into the army comps and then into the replay itself. The first army we're going to begin with today is one of the attacking armies, that being commanded by Alissan the Idiot, formerly known as Alissan the Strategist, who actually sent in the replay. So big thank you to Alissan for supporting the channel. I greatly appreciate it. But in any case, he has brought some Moradon Heavy Maulers, a significant amount of chaff in this army from what I recall. A couple units here of Sauron's Will, some Mordor Moradon Halberds, which is a horrible unit thing to say in rapid succession. Another unit of Heavy Maulers over there. He's also got some Numenorian Shield Guard, who are a very, very steady mainline unit. I believe in this patch they currently have 2 HP. I don't know. My .91 stats are so muddled right now because I've just had my face in the .95 ones forever. So I'm probably going to make a few mistakes in that regard. But in any case, I believe they have 2 HP. Very, very sturdy line infantry. Not going to run away in a hurry. And behind them we have yet more Mordor Moradon Halberds, a unit of Uruk Bodyguard, and some Mordor Moradon Uruks who are going to be fused with the regular Uruks. These guys will just be a armor upgrade for the run-of-the-mill Uruk infantry. Let's see. He's got yet more Mordor Moradon Uruks. Yeah, like I said, a lot of chaff in this army. He's actually got some Mordor Moradon bows who are very good with their 10 missile damage. That puts them pretty well on par in terms of just raw power with a lot of the Elven units, although naturally they lack the accuracy that the Elven infantry tend to have at their disposal. And over here we've got a unit of Olokai as well, because who doesn't love the Olokai? Everyone who plays Mordor probably is going to bring a unit of Olokai, and I think that's just about it. Oh, no, actually he's got some Temple Inquisitors over here. I love the Temple Inquisitors, and they are going to be very strong in the next patch as well. We recently decided upon a few stat changes to the elite units. The elite units will be, I'd say, fairly smaller than they are now, but they are also getting 2 HP and the extra stats that come with a smaller unit size. So they will be, I would call them Terminators. They are big, chrome-armored, deadly killing machines that will truck their way through a lot of infantry, but they're going to be low enough in number that it's not going to be completely crazy. I think it's still in keeping with the philosophy of making their mainline infantry units a lot more important. But in any case, let's move on to the next army. We have the forces of Engsfitz, who is commanding yet another Mordor force. He's got some Mountain Trolls, some Uruk Archers, he's got some Uruk Halberds, so a little bit lower of a lower tier force here. The Mordor Moradon Halberds and Mordor line just basically in general is about it's a step above the regular Uruk line infantry. So a little bit more low tier here, but he does definitely have a lot of numbers to make up for that. He's got some Uruks here, and then we get into his elite course. He's got some Morgul Chosen, some Numenorian Shield Guards, Uruk Bodyguard, 2 Uruk Bodyguards. What do you know? A couple units here of the Sauron's Will, and a lot of halberds and things like that as well. So what he lacks on mainline infantry, he does seem to make up for a little bit in terms of a fairly large amount of elite infantry. Those 2 bodyguards in particular are going to be real deadly. He's got some Orc Raiders here in his front line as well, but the lowest of the lowest tier. It's about as far down as you can go without becoming Snaga, but they do have a lot of numbers, and they can wear down enemy forces in a hurry. Over here we have another Mordor force being commanded by Pizza Maker 90. He's got some... These are the Orc Maulers. He's also got some Mordor Moradon bows. Everybody loves these guys. Like I said, very, very deadly in terms of their raw missile damage. He's also got some Uruk Archers. And in the back, a ton of Uruks. Pretty much your bog standard Mordor army. And behind them, he's got kind of a mix of the previous 2 armies. He's got a blend here of the Mordor Moradon Uruks and the regular mainline Uruks as well. Bringing in some Morgul's Chosen. I think he's got the standard 2 Sauron's Will, which I'm sensing a pattern here. I think this is pretty well standard for the Mordor armies in the scenarios, in that they all have 2 units of Sauron's Will. And behind them, we got another couple units here of the Uruk Bodyguard and a unit, actually a second unit here of the Mountain Trolls. So let's move on to the 4th and final Mordor army, This one being commanded by Asgal Nordir, who I think is running the HeathHorton scenarios now. I think Heath might be taking a break. I certainly haven't heard very much from him in the last little while. But I think that Asgal Nordir has taken that over and is actually making scenarios and things like that for the RP, for the HeathHorton RP, not the other RP that's going on the Third Age Reforged Discord. Don't confuse the two; they are different. So yeah, I'm actually going to put a, I don't know if I mentioned this already, but I'm going to put a link to their Discord down in the description. If you guys want to join up and hang out with these guys, they are all really nice, friendly, and will help you get started on the game right away. But in any case, Mordor Mordor Heavy Maulers, know these guys by now. They are heavy AP shock infantry, but they're orcs, so they're just kind of meh. But they do definitely have numbers that can wear down elite infantry over time. And behind them, we got some Mordor Mordor halberds, very elite tier force here. Yet more Mordor Mordor Uruks. I think it's got about 4 or 5 units of them there. Some Olagais. This is a very elite Mordor force. A couple units, I believe, of the Uruk bodyguard. Yes, 1, 2. Maybe they all have 2 units of Uruk bodyguards. I don't know. I could have missed something. In any case, he's brought some Morgul Chosen, some Temple Inquisitors. Everybody loves these guys. And a unit of Temple Guard, which I believe, yes, indeed, is where his general rather is going to be hanging out. He's got some Numenorian Shield Guard as well, and some Sauron's Will backed up by some Mordor Mordor bows. This is a lot of infantry, and a lot of elite infantry as well that the defenders are going to have to deal with. I don't like their chances. In any case, we can now move on to this one errant Isengard force that just somehow got... I mean, they're on the side of Mordor, but I don't know how they managed to do it, but they forded the river, and they've now come in behind the defender's position. So this is going to be... That's going to be something that I think that Gondor is going to have to deal with in the early game before they can turn their sights on helping their allies hold the line in the north. But in any case, Pasternak commanding this force, he's got some Uruk-hai Raiders, some Uruk-hai Infantry, some Uruk Reavers, who I love the look of. I can tell you that they will be pretty decent. Actually, Isengard in general is going to be pretty damn strong in the coming patch. Got some Uruk-hai Pikemen right here, and some Uruk-hai Archers out in front. Trolls of the White Hand. Oh, they're going to be so cool in the next patch. They're actually going to be the only trolls with anti-cavalry bonuses. I believe most of them are losing it. But they are going to get a spear and a shield. So they are going to be another heavily armored troll unit, kind of along the lines of the Olog-hai, but they're also going to have a shield as well, which is going to protect them from incoming arrow fire, which, as we all know, trolls don't like very much. I think the only other unit of trolls that has a shield that protects them from arrows is the snow troll, so that's kind of nice. Yet more Uruk-hai Raiders. So that's pretty well a lower tier force here. A lot of chaff. Do have a Nazgai bodyguard and some guards of the Orthanc. I don't think there's any like regular run-of-the-mill Nazgai. He's got some berserkers and a core of Uruk-hai infantry. So it's not the scariest Isengard force that ever was, but it is definitely something that the defenders are going to have to reckon with. But speaking of the defenders, let's go ahead. Let's see what they've brought to the battle today. The first defending army we're going to look at today is the forces of Arcturus, who is commanding the Kingdom of Gondor. He's got some Axemen of Lasarnak here. I believe this is his third line. He's got a lot of Axemen of Lasarnak. In the back, he's got some Sons of the Argonath, who are going to be real nice coming into the next patch, but again, going to be a very small number. Wardens of the White Tower, very sexy, another very powerful unit that is going to be a heavy hitter moving into the next patch. Over here, we got some Lasarnak nobles, who I think Gondor is losing. I think that their model is going to be just an upgrade for the Axemen of Lasarnak, who honestly kind of need it. The model here looking a little bit dated. I know it's been around since the original, I think it's been around since like 3.0 Third Age, or like possibly even earlier. So it's nice to see them get a little bit of an aesthetic upgrade here in the form of the Lasarnak nobles. But let's move it up a little bit here to their second line. Got some Gondor infantry. I'm not a big fan of them in the current patch. They don't really seem to do much in a lot of the replays that I've seen, and in a lot of the instances where I've actually used them. They kind of fall flat a little bit. They're almost like heavily armored Snaga in a lot of ways. They do have a lot of numbers, however, so they can hold the line for a while and tire out enemy units. Now, anomalously, on his first line, he's got all of his elites. We've got some Guards of Osgiliath here, some Shielded Fountain Guard, yet more... actually, no, we don't have any Fountain Guard in there. Yeah, no, we totally do. We have some Fountain Guard mixed in amongst the Citadel Guards. This is a very deadly front line of spears, and that's going to be what Gondor is all about in the coming patch. I know I can't stop talking about patch 0.95, but damn am I excited. And out here on the flank, we have a unit of Veterans of Osgiliath. I think he's actually got 2 units of them. These guys are very good, heavily armored bowmen. They've got a shield value, and they're extremely able heavy infantry once they've run out of ammunition. So this is actually a really powerful-looking Gondor force, and I don't know how well the Isengarders are going to deal with the Gondorians. Now, maybe their best chance would be to try and circumvent them, but I suppose we can save that for later on in the battle. So let's go ahead and let's start the replay. I hope you guys enjoy. Haha, just kidding. We totally forgot 2 defenders' armies. I noticed. It was a test to see if you would too. You passed. Well done. In any case, up here we have a Umbar force being commanded by Froggy. He's got some Castamir's Chosen, and in behind them some Corsair Black Guards. Now, if you guys are at all familiar with Reforged, you know that Umbar is all about that hard-hitting heavy infantry line. Actually, their light infantry is not terrible either. A lot of really nice cost-effective trades like the Corsair Savages and things like that. But in any case, this front line here, Castamir's Chosen, very, very strong, but they are a little bit thin. So if the Mordor forces wanted to be able to push through, they might have the opportunity to do so, especially with the large numbers that they can bring to bear on this comparatively very sparsely defended defending left flank. Now, in behind them, we've got a couple units here of the Abrazanim Nardu Tariq, who I believe have a little bit higher mass. I'm not entirely sure on that, but they are also AP as well with multiple HP. So once they get in there and support the Castamir's Chosen, that's a really nasty 1-2 punch, especially with some of these Corsair Fencers and the Blackguard over here waiting in the wing. That is not going to be fun for Mordor to have to push through with a mostly chaff army. In behind them, we've got a couple units here of the Abrazanim Nardu Zagar, and finally a unit of Naru Royal Guards. So this is a really tough, nice tiered defense here that Froggy has set up. I don't know how Mordor is going to get through there without a little bit of aid, but we'll see what happens. In any case, in the back here, we can see a unit of Harbingers of Castamir who are going to be damn sexy moving forward. They're going to be really high melee defense units in 0.95 and a lot of damage and HP behind them as well. But currently, I believe they have like 3 or 4 HP, so they are not easy to knock down with their heavy armor, very high attack values, and their nice charge value to boot. Over here, we got another unit of Corsair Fencers and some Abrazanim Nardu Bawib. And then we get into kind of the lower tier units of the Umbar army. So we can see a lot of the elites stationed over there on Froggy's left. But over here, a little bit closer to the center, we've got some Corsair Warriors. We've got another unit of Corsair Fencers. Damn, he's got a lot of Corsair Fencers. But he's got also a lot of Corsair Warriors as well, who are an okay-ish medium infantry unit. They don't stand up to Uruks very well in close combat, however. Over here we got some Beligear Footmen, so it looks like Umbar is going to be defending like several choke points here at once, so they're going to be very thinly spread. But yeah, looking like 2 or 3 units here of the Beligear Footmen, and not really a whole lot to back them up, so I think that's going to be down to his allies to try and give him a little bit of help. Oh no, it looks like we missed a unit over here of Naru Royal Archers, which is damn sexy. Look at them, they look like Shredder from the Ninja Turtles or something. It's kind of cool. But they are multiple HP, heavily armored archers who are also decent enough infantry units as well. But I think it does it for the Umbar army. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at one of the armies here being commanded by Dol Amroth, and this is, I believe, under the command of Salty Iron Guard, who I've never actually seen in a replay before. But in any case, he's got, I believe, 2 or 3 units of the Dol Amroth Men-at-Arms. Everybody loves the Dol Amroth Men-at-Arms. They're going to be nice and strong in 0.95 as well. Over here we got some Endelon Halberdiers, who I think it's safe to say they are one of the finest halberd regiments in the game currently, and they will definitely be very strong moving forward as well. I think they are, again, going to take the kind of pride of place at the front of the non-super elite halberd line. There's a few bodyguard units with halberds. I think they're going to be better than them in the next patch, but they definitely have, I think, the highest base value of the halberd units. And behind them, another unit of the Dol Amroth Men-at-Arms. Over on, moving over onto this flank, got another unit of the Endelon Halberdiers there to hold the line, from which the Dol Amroth player can reinforce at his leisure. He's got a couple units of Tarnostian Guard, who not a lot of killing power, but in the next patch and in this patch as well, they do have some staying power, as most spearmen tend to do. Over here, got a couple units of the Tirith Marksmen, heavily armored archer units that can stand up quite well in a skirmish fight. Now, in behind them, 2 units of the dismounted Swan Knights, who are not quite as good as the Talon Knights, but they are reasonably cost-effective, and they do have a lot of numbers and 2 HP to boot. Moving on over here, we got some more Dol Amroth Men-at-Arms. Of course, there's a lot of Men-at-Arms and Halberdiers in a Dol Amroth army. Why else? Or, like, what else would you bring, really? I mean, the Halberds plus the Dol Amroth Men-at-Arms, when supporting one another, are very, very strong. Over here we got some Tirith Wardens and another unit of dismounted Swan Knights. So a fair amount of elites here, but also some decent chaff that support each other really well. Actually, it looks like we're missing a few units here. A unit of Haven Guard. Who doesn't love the Haven Guard? They are very, very strong, and I think you're going to be seeing the Talon Knights get a very similar model in the next one. They might get it's like the Royal Swan Knight model or whatever from DAC. A little while back, I made a dismounted version for a submod I was working on, and yeah, hopefully we'll see those added in to the new patch. But out in front of them, got another unit of Dol Amroth Men at Arms. I think that just about does it for the defenders at this point. So let's go ahead and let's get into the replay, but for realsies this time. So over on this side, we can see both sides getting ready to clash on this this spur of the mountain. It looks like Umbar is going to take the initiative here and charge some of his heavy-hitting Corsair Fencers into the mix. Now, the Corsair Fencers can do a ton of damage. They've got like 40 armor-piercing damage, and they will shred units like the Moranon Heavy Maulers, I think, pretty quickly, unless they find themselves surrounded. And so far, look at this. You can see a lot of dead orcs there on the front lines. Let's go ahead and let's speed that up just a tad. Oh yeah, you can really start to see them begin to drop there. Wow, look at that, like 5 of them just died in the space of a few seconds. Yeah, the Corsair Fencers are going to do a lot of work against these guys, and that's going to prevent some of those armor-piercing units from getting in to the Casimir's Chosen. This is actually a really nice trade here. Now, the Corsair Fencers are very, very powerful, but he's got more of them that he can trade with the rest of this army, and it does prevent these Moranon Heavy Maulers from smacking in to the heavily armed Casimir's Chosen, where they're going to do much, much better than they would against a unit that is very stacked in terms of melee defense, like the Corsair Fencers. Over here, however, it looks like Esgal Nordir having a little bit more luck, managing to get his Moranon Heavy Maulers into the Casimir's Chosen. Now, the Casimir's Chosen will butcher these guys, but with their AP and high damage values, they will probably shave off a fair amount of HP from this unit before all is said and done. So that's going to end up being a reasonable trade for Mordor on this end, but over here, the initiative of the Umbar player is going to spare the rest of his line some pretty significant punishment, I would say. Moving on up to this end, you can see the Beligir footmen supported by the Corsair warriors now forming themselves up on the hilltops, waiting for that Mordor storm to break upon their ranks. But it doesn't look like Mordor is really all that interested in it. You can see that they are mostly focusing where the Umbar Elite Corps is, which maybe isn't the best idea, but I don't know. It's very easy for Umbar to reinforce either of these choke points from both ends, really, so it doesn't really matter where he ends up. He's probably going to be fighting the Umbar elites at some point or another. Now, over here, it looks like the footmen not doing quite so well against the Orc Maulers. Just the sheer numbers here and the AP that these guys can bring to bear is definitely taking a toll on the Beligir footmen. Ooh, a little bit of lag there. And we can see them begin to drop at a reasonably steady rate. But over here, more Corsair Fencers backed up by some Corsair Warriors, counter-pushing on the left flank. And I think that's going to be enough, actually, to drive back a significant number of these Mordor chaff. Now, they've got numbers, and they actually have some staying power here, which is a nice move, I think, on the part of Pizza Maker 90, sorry. Now, if the rest of his chaff evaporates, he is going to have a fairly sturdy unit here, like the Morgul Chosen, to hold on to any gains that these guys may have made, which is going to allow him to easily reinforce with the rest of his elite corps once the Umbar forces have been tired out. So this is just a game of attrition here, just moving in waves, trying to wear down the defenders, and this is really the kind of engagement that attackers generally want to have, since they've usually got more resources than the defenders, and it's really down to the defenders to make them pay exceptionally in these kinds of exchanges. And it looks like Dol Amroth is really in the process of doing that right now, although with the ranged fire support, that's not Esgal Nordir, that is actually Pizza Maker. But the ranged fire support that Pizza Maker is able to lend to his forces, especially against some of these Eldhelon Halberdiers who don't have shields, this could be a grind of attrition that's ultimately not going to be in the favor of Dol Amroth, just given how much AP and chaff that the Mordor forces can bring to bear. But we'll see. Let's see what's going on over on this end. Yet to be tested, these Dol Amroth forces here, the Tarnostian Guard, backing up the Eldhelon Halberdiers, are just weathering that arrow storm. Now, what's that coming in from? I would assume some Uruk archers. They're not amazing. They probably won't do very well against the heavily armored forces of Dol Amroth, but once they bring in the Mordor Moranon bows, or whatever they're called, they will probably have a little bit more success on that end. Now let's see what's happening over here. It looks like Gondor, seeing that he's definitely got the advantage, I think, in composition over the Isengard forces, he's going to move in and try and cut off any lines of retreat or possibility of fortifying this hill here on the part of Isengard. But Isengard, I think, still has a card to play if he wants to. No, actually, he's not going to be able to fall back any further. So if he's not careful, he's going to find himself pinned by that Gondor force against the border of the map. And I don't think that the Isengarders have what it takes to beat down such an elite Gondor force as the one facing them across the field. So I think a little bit of initiative here on the part of Pasternak is going to go a very long way. If he can pick a fight, I mean, he's still got some time to get himself in a position. Not very much, because he hasn't really done anything right now, or the last little while. But if he can pick a fight up here on this hill, then he'll do a lot better for himself. Hill advantages are huge in Medieval 2, and I would say in Total War in general. But just being passive like that is really not going to serve him, I think, in any way. Let's pop on over to this end, pop it up to full speed. Can see the Mordor forces here under Alisand the Idiot getting ready to get stuck in against the Adhelon Halberdiers and the rest of the Dol Amroth forces. Now, they're a little bit spread thin. I think they've only got 3 or so regiments of footmen here to defend this choke point from what looks like a very substantial commitment on the part of Mordor. Yeah, you can see yet more forces moving against Mordor on heavy maulers, getting ready to support their brothers in beating down this Dol Amroth shield wall. They seem to be taking their time. I don't blame them. They are winded after having walked up that gigantic hill. So let's come back here and see what they get up to in a few moments. But let's move on to one of the other choke points, because I think we can see a lot of action here. Yeah, Dol Amroth really pushing hard here against the Orc Maulers, and you can see that the Orc forces are being steadily driven back from the heights. But actually, no, this is Pizza Man, or Pizza Maker, or whatever, still pouring in that fire. And over time, that is going to be a problem for the army of Dol Amroth. Although, if they have armor upgrades, and I don't remember if they do or not, this may not really be all that big of a danger for them. But I suppose we'll see. I seem to be putting some fire into them with, I got no idea what. The Tirthair marksman counter sniping the Orc archers here, and that is going to wear them down real fast. The Orc archers are really just chaff archers that are there to be an annoyance and maybe deal with some of the lighter infantry units on the part of their enemy. But moving on over to this end, Pizza Maker still pushing hard up this spur, and it seems like he's really made some gains here against the forces of Umbar. But Dol Amroth has come in with a significant detachment of men-at-arms. Now, it says the defeat is certain for them, but honestly, I'm not too sure. I know they've got some, of course, their fencers in there somewhere. Oh yeah, a fairly healthy unit, of course, their fencers, in fact. This is going to be tough for Mordor. Although, again, with that ranged fire support, they actually brought the Mordor bows to bear. That is going to weaken this flank significantly. The Corsair warriors do not have the defensive stats to stand up to that withering 10 missile damage. And that's a lot of bowmen there as well. 200 shots coming in every few seconds. Well, that's going to wither those Corsair units up pretty quickly. But speaking of Corsairs, let's see how the Umbar units are doing here against what appears to be most of the forces from Esgal Nordir. Now, he's got a lot of Uruks in there, and it's a very thin line here of the Abrazadim Nardu Tariq. I don't really even see too many of the Casimirs Chosen left on this end. This is where I believe the armor-piercing units managed to connect with them. And over here, the valiant sacrifice of those Corsair fencers has really paid off. These Casimirs Chosen still in the fight, but not enough of them, I think, to hold this all by their lonesome. Still over in this end where they are backed up by the Corsair fencers, they are steadily driving the Uruk halberds back, and this is looking like maybe a bit of a stalemate for me. I think the Umbar is going to win over on this side, but over here where Esgal Nordir is definitely at his strongest, you can see the Abrazanim Nardu Tariq and the Nardu Zagar being steadily overlapped here on the flank and beaten down. So this is going to come down to like a fight in the middle, I would say, just given by how the formations are pushing against each other right now. Now let's pop back over to this end. It looks like the forces here of Alisand the Idiot are now pushing against Dol Amroth, and it said victory on both sides. I don't know who you want to believe, but the Dol Amroth men-at-arms definitely have the quality advantage, and there's quite a lot of them. I mean, there's 200 men in a unit, and there's only 250 Uruks here. So the Uruks do not have the numbers advantage that you would normally expect them to have in this kind of situation. They're pushing hard, but the Dol Amroth men-at-arms backed up by the Halberdiers are pushing back just as fiercely. Over here, another unit of Dol Amroth men-at-arms moving in to try and reinforce the line of halberds where they seem to be at their thinnest. not a bad idea at all, especially with the high mass given to these units by the shield wall formation that they are in. This is going to be... yeah, this is going to be a massacre here, I think, for the forces of Alisson the Idiot. And he does not have nearly enough reinforcements nearby, I think, to hold on to any gains that he might make. Now, he's bringing in a unit of Elite Sauron's Will and some Mordor Morden on Heavy Maulers, which is going to be nice against the heavily armored units of Dol Amroth, but the rest of his forces are a little bit too far away. I would definitely start to move up a little bit. Logistics is something that you need to be cognizant of in Medieval 2, because you will miss opportunities to push or to reinforce, which could potentially see you losing some of the gains that you made previously that were very, very hard won with the lives of your men. Moving on over to this end. Well, how are they doing here? This is definitely one of the weaker Dol Amroth flanks. I would say that the Halberds plus the Spearmen could... I'd say that they could be dealt with by these Mordor forces, although it's going to definitely cost a lot of lives. But hey, orc lives don't matter. Nobody really cares about them, not even their mothers. They're too ugly. So yeah, a lot of dead Uruks here, and I'm sure that we're going to see a lot more before they manage to push through just the mass of Dol Amroth units here defending this spur. Moving on over to this end, it looks like the Uruks have decided to try a different tack. Many of them are actually running. Looks like a unit here of Uruks now exhausted after a prolonged melee with the stalwart men of Dol Amroth, who are now just kind of holding the line, but the orcs are going to try and shoot them to pieces. I don't know why they're using the fire arrows. Morale isn't too significant in this patch, although I can tell you that it will change in patch 0.95, but it definitely doesn't really do... It doesn't really serve much of a purpose to be firing fire arrows into these guys right now, but oh well. This is probably the best thing that they can do at this point. Let's see what they're using. Uruk Archers, yeah, not going to do great against these guys, but they've tried the conventional approach, and now they're trying something different. So definitely a good idea to reevaluate your tactics when you don't see them working out for you in the long run. Now over here, it looks like the attacker is finally having some success. You can see that they've really pushed up here, but they are actually being overlapped a little bit by some reinforcements from Dol Amroth, who has now committed a battalion of their elite Swan Knights, and the Sauron's Will here, who have pushed so far forward and made such great strides for their side, are going to find themselves surrounded by some vengeful men-at-arms backed up by the elite Knight cast of Dol Amroth. Still, there's a lot of orcs here yet to come, and the attackers definitely still have a few cards to play in terms of committing their elites. You can see some of the Uruk Bodyguard here, another unit of Sauron's Will, another unit of Bodyguard, and there's still the Trolls to come. So once they manage to whittle down the forces of Dol Amroth even further, a little bit of lag, I'm sure we're going to see the elites begin to move in. Now over here, it looks like Umbar is being steadily overwhelmed. That flank has just been massacred by the forces here of Asgal Nordir. These Corsair Fencers doing their best to hold back the Trolls. Now, the Corsair Fencers have really high melee defense. I would say actually as high, if not higher, than the Trolls. So this is not a bad engagement for them. And with that armor piercing, they're going to be able to just scythe through the weak points in the armor of the Olokai. So it looks like Asgal Nordir not really liking that engagement. Going to try and pull them out of there and get them in behind the Abrazanim Nardazagar, who are doing their best to hold the line against this oncoming tide of orcs. But slowly but surely, the men of Umbar are being dragged down and devoured by the orcish hordes. Now in the back, there's still another line yet to go, but mostly they are archers. The Abrazanim Nardubawi are decent enough medium infantry, and the Nar Royal Archers will hold the line, but there's just so many Mordor forces here that they will eventually be overwhelmed. And indeed, Asgal Nordir still has his elite corps intact. So this is going to be, I think, a no-brainer for the forces of Mordor over on this end. And honestly, it's looking like they definitely need it. But I can see an engagement beginning here between, it looks like the forces of Isengard and Gondor, who are finally coming to terms with one another. Now, the Isengarders have opted, instead of trying to circumvent the Gondorian forces, possibly because the Gondorians moved in and cut off any avenue from moving up and circumventing the defending forces in the positions, rather, of the defending forces in the north, is just going to opt for the conventional approach and try and beat down the forces of Gondor in close combat. Now, Gondor's got a lot of answers to the Isengard roster here. He's got some shield wall infantry. He's got a lot of AP, actually, to deal with the heavily armored Isengarders. And Pasternak actually charging forward here in not the best formation, kind of a bit of a column, I suppose. and as opposed to the Gondorians who have formed a large contiguous line. And that's not going to do very well for me. You can already see the Uruk-hai beginning to be surrounded by the Gondorians, and even though the Uruk-hai are definitely better than the Gondorian infantry in a 1-to-1 fight, this is not ideal for them in the slightest. But actually over here, Pasternak might be able to take advantage of this. I don't know if this is a blunder or if he's just this is part of a plan on his end, but he's going to move around with some Isengard Uruk Reavers and manage to possibly get a nice charge into the flank of the Gondorian infantry. Let's move over into the center. Ooh, getting a lot of lag here. There's a lot of forces all over the battlefield. This is truly a gigantic scenario. Instead of the Uruk-hai pikemen clashing with the Citadel Guard and the Fountain Guard. Now, these guys, as you can see, they definitely have a ranged advantage in terms of their longer pikes versus the shorter spears of the Gondorians, and so they're not doing too bad. It says the defeat is almost a certainty, however, and I think once these units move forward and try to push past the pike wall and get in amongst the pikemen themselves, they will be able to wipe them out fairly handily. Just over here across the line, the Isengarders seem to be doing all right. Now, there is a pike unit here to counter the Uruk-hai pikes, backed up by some Fountain Guard, who are all AP. So this is not going to be an easy fight for Isengard in the slightest, but they seem to be holding the line, at least for the time being. Yeah, over on this end, the Axemen of Lasarnak plus a unit of Gondor infantry are going to be able to push quite handily through the Uruk-hai infantry. So it looks like Isengard really going to have to rely on their elite forces. Maybe, actually over here, I think that they would definitely have an opportunity to move to some of their berserkers, for example. They might be able to roll up the Gondorian line, although that being said, the Gondorians definitely have some pretty significant reserves here in the form of the veterans of Osgiliath, and they would be able to counter a push from the berserkers pretty nicely. Now, let's see what we've got over here. Ooh, the lag, though. The lag is severe right now. This is probably the biggest frame drop I think I've ever had in this scenario. Uruk Reavers hacking down the Axemen of Lasarnak, proving to be the greater Axemen. And unless the Gondorians move in here and to try and prevent this unit from breaking through, they could find this unit, or this flank here, sandwiched between some pretty significant, hard-hitting AP infantry. And actually, we've got some trolls over here as well, looking like they're going to precipitate that process, though the Axemen, the Lasarnak nobles, rather, have been committed to try and stabilize the situation. But it's still looking... I would say it's definitely in favor of Gondor at this point. I mean, it says a defeat is a distinct possibility, but honestly, if you look at the numbers here, the Uruk-hai are being steadily driven back. But we'll come back to that in just a moment. Let's pop over to this end. Ooh. Ooh, that lag, though, that is crazy. Sorry about that. Just trying to sort out the frame rate issues there, but unfortunately, I think it's just because of how many forces there are on the battlefield. This is an 8-army scenario on huge settings, so frame rate drops are to be expected.
The battle is very much in our favor.
Yeah, the Uruk Halberds here slowly but surely managing to push their way through the Dol Amroth line. And I think now that we're beginning to see some of the Mordor elites being committed here, that the defenders are going to begin to crumble. They were already very, very sparsely spread, and we're already just beginning to see the effects of that. So we've got some Dol Amroth men-at-arms here in a fight behind their own lines with some Uruks. The Uruks are showing that they are able to just wrap around these guys and beat them down with sheer weight of numbers. Over on this end, I don't know how they managed to get through here. It looks like there was a gap, actually, in the Dol Amroth line where the Swan Knights began to fail, and now Mordor is just pouring forces through there, through the lines of Salty Iron Guard. And we're going to see, yeah, we're starting to see the defender positions collapse here, although Dol Amroth does still have a card to play. Now, he's got a lot of forces back here. I'm not sure why he's allowing the Mordor forces to move through. I think if he was to double down on the choke points, he would do very, very well and would contain the Mordor forces here, preventing them from moving in to collapse any of these other choke points over here and support possibly even Isengard down on the mainland, not on the mainland, but down on this flat area against the forces of Gondor. But instead, the Dol Amroth player has opted to be a little bit, I would say, too passive. I mean, at this point, be aggressive. You can push back the orcs. They don't have a foothold yet, and yeah, definitely consider doing that. Over this time, you can see Umbar moving in to try and support the collapsing Dol Amroth lines, although I think this might just be a general retreat from the forces of Esgal Nordir. We got some Abrazani Mardubawi just trying to hold the line, performing a valiant rearguard action here alongside the Naranar Royal Archers, who are just holding back the storm of Mordor. allowing their brothers to escape and link up with the rest of the remaining defenders up here in a centralized position here in the plaza. Moving on over to this end, this is looking real ugly. I think Gondor's got this in the bag just by sheer weight of numbers. Yeah, it's fairly even in the center. Over on the flanks, though, it looks like the Uruk-hai are beating back Gondor. And over on this end, how are things going? Yeah, they're holding. A Citadel bodyguard being committed to try and stabilize the situation against some of these half-orc Baneguard and the Uruk Reavers. That's a lot of AP, but there's a lot of missile fire pouring down into these very vulnerable units, the Uruk Reavers and the Baneguard, lacking shields and really substantial armor values in general, are going to wither under that deadly iron hail coming in from the veterans of Osgiliath in the back there. It looks like the White Hand Trolls have pushed in to the veterans of Osgiliath, and they have now managed to silence one of these units. Unfortunately, Arcturus did not keep them on defensive formation, and so they are not going to be able to fire until they finally deal with that lone troll commando in behind their lines. This other unit here is definitely free to do their bloody work, and we can see Isengard losing very, very heavily on this flank. So it's fairly even here. We'll take another look in at this battle as things begin to progress. But from what I can tell on the minimap, it looks like the forces of Mordor have managed to break through the defensive formations of the defenders, and now they're just kind of bottled up here. And again, this is the consequence of not being as aggressive, I think, as they needed to be, is that they're going to find themselves surrounded, and now the Mordor forces can simply keep them contained, and if they so choose, they can move down in behind Gondor, and regardless of who wins that fight, Gondor is going to find their rear exposed to enemy attacks. Let's see what we got over here. Some Harbingers of Castamere falling back behind the defensive lineup of Dol Amroth and Narnar Royal Guard, trying to follow them in. Looks like we've got some Talon Knights here as well. Looks like I missed them in the army composition phase, but this is a very elite unit from Dol Amroth. I would say they're the equivalent of the dismounted Dunedain Knights for the fiefdom of the south. Now, there's a significant amount of troops here, but I mean, they're just so bottled up at this point that I'm not really sure they're going to be able to accomplish a whole lot. Although we've got some Belfast Marines here. Another unit I think I missed in the army comp phase, but the Belfast Marines can potentially swing this battle in favor of the defenders if they manage to take out one of the higher priority units, like the Temple Inquisitors, for example. Oh, it looks like the Gondor General and the Citadel Bodyguard just fell to the axes of Isengard. So while things kind of continue to develop up here on the plateau, I'm going to pop down onto the lowlands and see exactly what's happening. Now, Gondor is definitely winning on this flank, but the loss of their general is a significant one. Half-Orc Baneguard have definitely proved their worth, standing their ground against an overwhelming advantage in favor of the men of the West and managing to hack down their commander. That has got to be dispiriting for the forces of Gondor. Now let's check things out here all along the line. Uruk-hai archers have now been committed to try and hold back Gondorian forces. It looks like they're winning in the center now as well. You can see they've really managed to push through with the aid of their pikemen. I think there's some Osgiliath pikemen in there as well. Yes, indeed, there is a fairly depleted unit of them, but they've definitely proven their worth here, being at the forefront of that push. Over here, though, where the Berserkers and the Nazgai Bodyguard have been committed, the Citadel Guard are really struggling. Now, this is pretty ugly. You can see the Gondor line here beginning to bulge under the pressure of those Uruk-hai pikemen, backed up by two heavy-hitting Berserker units with AP, which is really not something that Gondor is all that prepared to deal with. Now, the rest of their forces are really tied up, so it may come down to the veterans of Osgiliath at some point here being committed to the very center of the Gondorian line to try and hold back this storm of elite units. Now, they have suffered very heavily, and you can see that they're actually focusing fire now on this portion of the line where the Berserkers are at their deadliest. So I think once the ammunition is gone, we'll probably see them committed to melee here. But this is looking like it's going to be a fairly solid victory in favor of Gondor, which is definitely what the defenders need at this point. Speaking of the defenders, let's pop back up here. You can see that the camp or the farms have been completely overrun, and now the remaining defenders are putting up a last stand in this central plaza. It looks like some of the Aberdeen Minority Bob managed to escape from that massacre over there, which is really very impressive. And the Mordor forces looking really, really tired. What do we got here? A small pocket of the Larmoth men-at-arms fighting just within view of their lines. Their brothers helpless to sally out and save them. The Uruk-hai are gonna, or the Uruk rather, are going to be able to surround these guys and ultimately defeat them within the eyes of their comrades. Now, Alcen the Idiot has brought in a unit of his Mornon bows, and it looks like the attackers are going to opt for the reasonably safe approach of just bombarding the defenders into submission, trying to do as much damage to them as humanly possible. And I bet you that they're going to go after a unit like the Harbingers of Castamere, who don't have any shield values and are actually facing the opposite direction. That would definitely be a juicy target there for those Mordor Mornon bows. Let's see what they do.
Only half the enemy force
It looks like they might be going after the Dol Men-at-Arms. Not convinced that that's the best idea at this point. They are going to get a lot of friendly fire by focusing on these guys, and this engagement is already won. So yeah, I wouldn't say that these guys really need the support. But in any case, let's take stock of what the Mordor forces still have available to them. I'm seeing a lot of Uruks, a lot of Halberds, a lot of Trolls, one or two units of Sauron's Will. Yeah, this is not looking good for the defenders up here. They really need Gondor. Where was Gondor? Well, apparently they were down in the lowlands dealing with Isengard. We hear the Dol Men-at-Arms still putting up a valiant stand, but ultimately they're going to find themselves overwhelmed. And it looks like Mordor is basically in command of all of these choke points. They are now freely able to bring up their forces at their leisure and begin to set themselves up for the final confrontation with the remaining defenders, most of which belong to Dol Amroth. Let's pop back down over here and see how much longer it's going to take Gondor to deal with the Isengarders. So we got some Sons of the Argonath that managed to get in behind the Isengard lines, and that's going to be really, really painful for Isengard, and I think this is going to be the end of Passenak's forces. Now, they have managed to break through in the center, just like I thought they would, but the veterans of Osgiliath have formed ranks, and they are now holding back the Nazgûl bodyguard. And I don't think I see too many berserkers left in there either, so I'm assuming that most of them were shot down. And the pikemen over there really not looking like they're in too good shape right now. They're very tired and down to half strength. Now I saw a berserker. Where was he? It's like I'm sure there's like a few of them left. Yeah, look at that. There's 44 of them left, and they've managed to break through here. And they're definitely making good use of that breakthrough, trying to roll up the Gondorian line here on both flanks, inflict as much damage as possible. Over here, though, Gondor is definitely victorious. A unit of veterans of Osgiliath has been committed alongside some axe nobles of Lasarnak to beat back the Uruk-hai infantry. And once they manage to break through this line, they will be able to roll up the rest of the Isengard forces. And it looks like it's going to come down to another big fight in the middle, but I think this is going to be pretty costly for Gondor, and I don't know if they're going to have the troops left with the fatigue necessary to really make a difference against the remaining attackers, because there's just so many of them. Yeah, if you look at that percentage, it's looking very, very bleak for the defending forces, 52 to 72, although they are outnumbered, I believe, by like 2 armies, so that does explain some of that difference there. What do we got here? Looks like Dol Amroth and the remaining Mordor forces are about to clash here. This final battle for the center of the town. I assume this is where all the civilians are, just huddled in fear against the masses of orcs. Meanwhile, the men of Dol Amroth marching bravely into battle against this oncoming horde of Uruk halberds, and they're going to hold the line as best as they're able. It looks like we've got some Numenorians coming in to help push through these guys. Ooh, that's going to be real ugly. And we're starting to see some of them drop here just by the sheer numbers and the mass that these many hundreds of Uruks are able to bring to bear against this thinly spread Dol Amroth halberd line. Still, they are fighting valiantly, and it looks like they're about to rout a unit of those Uruks, but now that the trolls have been committed, it's only a matter of time before this line of halberds begins to crack. Let's see what we got in the back here. It looks like some of the Mordor Mornon bows putting some serious fire into, I think, the Corsair Blackguard's probably the best thing that they can do at this point. The Javelin unit's definitely very vulnerable to ranged fire. Looks like the Belfalas Marines here alongside the Corsair Blackguards are going after the Trolls. I don't know if they managed to get them, though. They could just be going for the center in general, and the Trolls just happen to be there. Ooh. That's definitely knocking some HP off some of these very, very powerful elite units. I think a good target would be the Numenorian Shield Guard. They've pushed through and they're moving forward towards the Javelins, trying to silence them. Now would be a good time to show these guys why they came to the wrong party. Flying just over their head. Looks like they are definitely trying to go for the trolls, and most of those mountain trolls have been shut down. But I think now the main target should be this Numenorian shield guard, who are exposing their flank to the javelin units of the defenders. Haven Guard now being committed to the battle. This, you know, things have gone badly when the Haven Guard have to be brought in. And now the Numenorian shield guard are running in to the stone-cold wall of steel and valor that is the elite Haven Guard. This Numenorian shield guard, rather, being steadily cut down by the timely arrival of this elite regiment of warriors. Over here, the Swan Knights. It looks like 2 units of Swan Knights being committed to hold back the tide of Uruks as Mordor tries to push its way through yet another choke point. But looks like the defenders are holding on for the time being and managed to do a significant amount of damage to the attackers, but there's just so many of them. Look at this. This is hopeless without the intervention of Gondor. And speaking of, let's go see exactly what Gondor has managed to do to the Isenguards. This is just a bloody, bloody affair here. But it looks like that push in the center, now being surrounded on all sides, the Uruk-hai pikemen just taking a beating. Foes to their left, foes to their right. The unit of Fountain Guard coming in to complete this encirclement. Sons of the Argonath still looking real healthy, though, with 73 men in the unit. Berserkers being cut down, and it looks like most of Isengard's army has either been butchered or fled from the battlefield. So Gondor is going to have a reasonably large number of mostly elite infantry to throw at the attackers. So this fight, not over yet. Still a 20% difference between the two sides, but honestly that I think is mostly explained by the significant difference in the size of the teams. So Gondor, maybe they'll have the numbers to really influence the end of this battle. I'm not too sure, but they definitely need to get up here soon, because I don't know how much longer the men of Dol Amroth can hold on here. Of course, their Blackguards looking like they're out of ammunition, holding alongside the Tirthair Wardens. Meanwhile, Mordor just trying to muscle their way through the formations. Now, a little bit of a note on this kind of pushing. We are definitely in talks amongst the development team to try and minimize this, possibly by limiting shield wall only to spear units so that it's not quite so freely available across all faction rosters, just so you don't see this pushing being the main form of tactics in the game. Basically, just how you win a game is just by pushing through enemy formations. So I think we're going to see a little bit less of this, but for the time being, you can really see the effectiveness of this tactic as the Numenorian Shield Guard leading the way, pushing through, allowing the rest of the Mordor forces to follow them in. Now, over on this side, the defenders are really managing to hold on. Looks like they're actually winning against this massive horde here of the Mordor Uruks, most of whom are exhausted and fighting against these fresh troops, and especially these Talon Knights. They are going to shred through these guys on any day of the week, but especially when they're exhausted and can hardly lift their swords and shields to defend themselves. Over here, the Swan Knights and the Saurons will trading fairly evenly. Definitely more Swan Knights left here, although I think that eventually the AP of the Saurons will, backed up by the sheer numbers of the Mordor bows, is going to take a significant toll on the remaining Swan Knights. Now over here, this is where it's really looking desperate as well. The Aberzenim Nardubawi alongside the Tirthair Marksmen have now had to be committed. As you can see, most of the halberds have been swept away. There's just a small pocket here of men fighting hard together, not giving up. They still believe in the cause. Looks like they're actually fighting a Temple Inquisitor. I wonder if some of the Mordor Temple Inquisitors have been brought in at all yet. What do we got here? Looks like some of the Naru Royal Guard decided they were going to sally outwards and try and deal with some of these Mordor bows. Now, I believe they are AP spears, but honestly, they would be better served back on the line, and I don't really know what they're doing quite so far from the rest of the army. That's definitely a misstep there on the part of the Umbar player Froggy. Over on this end, the Tirthair Wardens trying to hold the line, but you can just see that they've been bisected by that push from the Numenorians, and now the Haven Guard are going to be brought in to try and bottle up this breach, but I don't think it's going to happen. There's just not enough of them, and really at this point, Gondor needs to be brought up here to try and save their allies, but they are still very, very far away. I think they're still trying to deal with the remains of the Isengard. It looks like the Umbar General has now fallen, surrounded by foes on all sides. His bodyguard was just not able to keep him safe. And now the Gondorians have officially wrapped up here with the Isengard army. Just look at the devastation, though. It's going to take them a very long time to be able to get up there, and I don't think they're going to be able to do it in the timely fashion that the remaining defenders up on the plateau really need them to. Yeah, you can see the defending positions have already begun to crack as the Mordor forces have actually managed to breach into the center of the square, and they're now freely able to surround the remaining defenders as they try valiantly to hold the line, waiting for Gondor. Looks like a player's admitted defeat. I assume that is Pasternak, since I don't think he has an army left. Let's go ahead and let's kick it up to normal speed. Though we've still got like 10,000, 13,000 frames left, so I don't know. Maybe Gondor is going to get here and put up a serious fight, but honestly, if these defending positions are crushed by the time that they arrive with their exhausted forces, I think the attackers will simply just be able to surround them and deal with them quite handily. Morgul's Chosen pushing into the back of the Harbingers of Casimir, backing up the Talon Knights. Man, that's a lot of Talon Knights. They've really done well against these Mordor Mordaunt Uruks. They are starting to get a little bit tired. Over on this end, the Dol Amroth forces are really fighting back-to-back, so this part of the line is definitely contiguous, and they are going to be able to just kind of put up a very effective resistance and avoid it being surrounded. But over on this end, you can see that that's not going to last for too much longer. The Swan Knights here holding their ground well enough against the Sauron's will, but the sheer numbers here of the Uruks, backed up by these Olokai, are eventually going to crack that defense. And over here, it's just a thin line of Tirthair marksmen holding back this storm of Mordor. And it looks like some of the valiant Eldel halberdiers have now lost the will to fight. Truly a disheartening sight for the forces of Dol Amroth when the valiant halberdiers are unable to carry on the battle, and they are now going to flee as best as they can, try and save their own skin, but they're just surrounded on all ends by foes, which really describes the Dol Amroth predicament right here. They've managed to halt the advance of Mordor here with the Haven Guard, but once the rest of these forces are able to break through, there are some significant elites here. Look at this, Sauron's Will, another unit of Sauron's Will, and I think there's still some Temple Inquisitors and things like that yet to come. Yes, indeed, that the defender's just not going to be able to hold on for too much longer. Now, where are the Gondorians? I need to know. What are they doing? Slowly walking towards the defending position. Looks like they're taking kind of the longest route, but I suppose this is actually the shortest, since they'd otherwise have to travel along that long path there. So Gondor is not going to be able to get there. The defenders, all of their valor and their patience has been in vain, and slowly but surely they are going to be overwhelmed and wiped out. And the only thing that Gondor is going to find when they arrive here in the town square is a boneyard composed of the remains of their former allies. I think we got here a small unit of Belfast Marines, looking like they're trying to put some supporting fire into the Mordor forces over here, but ultimately it's going to be completely out of their power, I would say. As this one Olokai is just knocking them down like bowling pins. And managed to toss a few javelins in there, maybe getting a handful of kills, but there's just so many orcs. Haven Guard now beginning to lose. The tide definitely turning against them. A push here from the Morgul's Chosen is going to be able to bisect this very small line. You can already see the Númenóreans and the orcs peeking through there in their dazzling obsidian armor. Yeah, those Haven Guard really not having a good time right now, but they have managed to. Looks like they've halted the advance here of the Morgul's Chosen and the Númenóreans once again. Now they're starting to come under fire from the rear. Like some Mordor and Morannon bows from Esgal Nordi are being brought to bear against the Haven Guard. And with that extra bit of pressure, I think that we're going to start to see this position evaporate very, very quickly. Now let's see what Gondor is up to. They finally managed to make it all the way over here. It doesn't look like it. So they've turned around for some reason. I don't know what's going on there. That's pretty crazy.
Only half our force remains.
Yeah, all the real action is going on up here where the men of Dol Amroth are very dearly selling their lives in this last stand. It's like the Talon Knights have managed to break through. Harbingers of Casimir are going to allow them to circumvent this Mordor position and maybe get in behind the Uruks, or possibly go for the Temple Guard and the Mordor Mornon bows, who are really giving the Haven Guard a lot of trouble at this point. Looks like the Temple Guard are putting fire into the Talon Knights. This is really a difficult situation for them. I mean, they could be used to outflank these Uruks here and begin to grind down that mass of Mordor Mornon orcs. But honestly, they would be exposing their rear to some pretty deadly missile fire. So there's not a whole lot of opportunity that they have to be effective. And it looks like Salty Iron Guard is ultimately going to decide that he's going to go into the rear of that Uruk position, as he can see the rest of the Mordor forces swarming around all that remains of their force. And this is a very, very nice last stand. They've really done well, held out for an extremely long time. It's just a shame that Gondor is being so slow in arriving on scene and trying to lend a little bit of help to these valiant defenders. But unfortunately, it's all for naught. And at this point, the remaining defenders of Dol Amroth and the Haven of Umbar have been overwhelmed. Only the Haven Guard, for the most part, remain in significant numbers, putting up their last stand about their prince. You can see Prince Imrahil right there looking a little bit weird. There's some texture strangeness, which I think it's worked out in the next patch for, I don't know how, but it definitely, he won't look so weird next time. Looks kind of like a Nazgul right now, all shady and stuff. Haven Guard just being crushed on all sides. Looks like the Talon Knights, not too sure what they want to do with themselves. Are these guys routing? No, they're not. I see. The Mordor Mornon bows have been silenced by the Harbingers of Castamere. I'm not too sure he knows what to do with these guys. I mean, this is a tough position for them to be in. Looks like they're ultimately going to decide to charge back into the fray and sell their lives very, very dearly. I wonder if they could cut their way to, like, the Tirithera Wardens or even the Haven Guard. That would be kind of amazing. Maybe like a lock shields, get into shield wall formation, just try and push their way through this massive Uruks to try and link up with the remains of the Haven Guard. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think there's just too many orc forces, and these Talon Knights are really exposed in the rear, and you can see them already beginning to drop from the combined might of the very numerous orcs and that fire from the rear from the Temple Guard. Looks like the Haven Guard instead are going to try and push their way out of this encirclement, although with the Temple Inquisitors here, fresh after being held in reserve for so long against the Haven Guard, who have been fighting hard this entire time and are now winded. I don't think that's going to be a possibility for these guys to escape. Well, let's see here. That's a lot of Mordor forces left. So it looks like the farm is going to fall. Although we still have this Gondor army to reckon with, although I don't know what they're going to do. Looks like they might just be abandoning their allies and setting themselves up here for a final stand on this large spit of land overlooking. I'm not sure what river this is. I mean, I suppose that's one way of doing it. I mean, at this point, they are much too late to save their allies, so I suppose there's nothing that they can do but try and fall back and sell their remaining lives as dearly as possible, try and kill as many of the orcs as they're able to in order to prevent the lands beyond from being despoiled too badly. Hopefully another relief force can be brought to bear here to try and reclaim these border farms. Now, that's a lot of dead... I mean, you got to hand it to the three defenders. They did really well. There was 2 extra armies here. There's 5 armies to their 3. And they have killed 72% of the attackers, which easily number in the tens of thousands, or rather, I should say numbered now in the tens of thousands. Yeah, so it looks like we're just going to be setting up here for... Oh, what is this? Talon Knights still running around, being a pain. Where are the remaining Haven Guard? I think they've been crushed. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that they've been crushed. So it looks like some of the Talon Knights going to try and maybe link up with Gondor, but ultimately they're going to be cut off here by the Mordor Mornon halberds. And with the rest of the Mordor forces hot on their heels, these guys are going to be surrounded and ultimately destroyed. But I think now is an okay time to begin to fast forward a little bit, and I'll see you guys in just a few moments. Alright, now Gondor is in position, as ready as they are ever going to be in this fight, and the forces of Mordor have now begun to swarm against this very, very thin line, and it looks to me like they're probably going to use the same tactics that they've used throughout the course of this battle, where they're going to try and push through. So now, if I was the Gondor player, I would definitely be moving some more forces forward to try and back up the line. And indeed, that is what Arcturus is going to do. Now here with the second line of Wardens of the White Tower and some Citadel Bodyguard, he may have the mass that he needs to try and hold back just this massive force of Orc Bruisers. They're going to try and shove their way through his elite infantry. And if the Mordor forces manage to do that effectively and quickly, well, this is going to be a blowout, I would say, in their favor. But if Gondor can get in there and hold the line for a significant period of time, I think that they can really extract a heavy toll from the remaining armies of the attackers. Now, I don't know if they're going to win. Honestly, I don't think they're going to win this. I'll be completely straight with you. I don't think that they have a chance of winning this, but what they do have a chance of is kicking a whole lot of ass and definitely going for a glorious end. So the forces of Mordor here finally clashing with the armies of Gondor. The remaining armies of Gondor, I should say. And it looks like they're just not able to penetrate through that formation. Now, this is the kind of fighting that Gondor will do very, very well in, especially in a small choke point like this with a lot of mass and a lot of AP, indeed, in the form of their Fountain Guard. They've got a lot of AP and some fairly hard-hitting units in there as well, like the Wardens of the White Tower. And I think they've still got a unit of Sons of the Argonath. Now, that's just a lot of units funneling into one area, so the frame rate is beginning to drop again, but they still got a significant number of these Sons of the Argonath who are very, very good. 73 of them at this late point in the battle. That will definitely be a decent unit to throw into the mix once the Mordor forces have been whittled down a little bit. Now, they won't beat... I don't think that in a straight fight that they would beat something like the Temple Inquisitors. And you can see a very healthy unit, in fact, a full-strength unit of Temple Inquisitors moving up to try and push through their Gondorian brothers from the north. But I don't know. Very tired Temple Inquisitors versus potentially fresh, or rather winded Sons of the Argonath. It might be an even fight. We'll see. Gondor really committing everything here to try and hold these guys back. Now, their flanks, again, very, very strong, but their center is pretty weak. And I think the Gondor player, Arcturus, recognizes that, and he's going to try and flood as many of his remaining forces into there as possible to try and hold on. Now, let's fast forward it just a little bit here. Yeah, Mordor is trying their best to push through, but the amount of mass that Gondor is now able to bring to bear is going to prevent that from being as easy, I think, as Mordor wants it to be. It's just an endless tide, though. Look at this. There's still more coming on the horizon, and there's yet more in the town square. If you look up there in the mini-map, there's an endless tide of Mordor forces moving into this Gondorian meat grinder. Truly a final stand worthy of song. Looks like they are managing to kind of bully their way in there with some of the higher mass units like the Númenórean Spearmen. I don't know, we'll see how well that goes. But yeah, this is definitely something I would like to see changed, I would say, in the coming patch. I don't want to see as much pushing through because it's kind of a no-brainer in a lot of ways. It's very easy to just mass troops and then push your way through a line and massacre people, since you end up surrounding them. They're like melee defense stats and things like that. They don't really count for as much. But as it is in the current meta, this is the way that it is played. So definitely hats off here to the Mordor players for knowing what they're about and knowing kind of the weaknesses of the defending players here, especially their very thinly spread lines. But again, this is something that I'm thinking we may see changed in the coming patch. We're currently talking about mass and how we want that to work. So I'll let you guys know what comes out of that. As this, though, Mordor has officially broken through the Gondorians. See those Morgul Chosen just hammering their way through. Although Mordor just lost their general, with a lot of these Uruk units in here that might... no, actually, a lot of them are like elite units and stuff like that, so they probably won't run. But at any other time, this could be enough to cause to precipitate a big rout. Sons of the Argonath somehow holding on, though. Still 65 strong. They've only lost about 8 of their number so far. Managed to take down the Mordor general. Let's see what the ultimate count here is. 75 to 97%. Also a lot of dead Mordor forces. And Isengard, of course, was completely wiped from the map. Let's go ahead and let's fast forward a little bit here. witnessed the end, down now to the final 300 or 3,000 or so frames. That's a lot of time left. Gondor's going to be standing up to Mordor for quite some time now. Oh man, just look at that. Just an endless river of Mordor forces moving in. Sons of the Argonath now surrounded, taking fairly significant casualties, although they are selling themselves very, very dearly indeed, reaping a bloody harvest amongst the ranks of the Mordor infantry. I think now they're starting to lose their HP, enough that we're going to start to see them drop really, really quickly. Over on this end, Citadel Guard holding on. Not a lot of killing power, unfortunately, behind the Citadel Guard. And against the Uruk Bodyguard, who I don't think they have AP, but they do have higher than average attack values and 2 HP. They're just not going to have the damage to stop those guys before they're overwhelmed. Running out of time here on the part of the attackers. Now, I didn't realize there was a time limit on this. I don't think it's going to matter, though. Temple Inquisitors breaking through what remains of the veterans of Osgiliath. Looks like the Sons of the Argonath have been completely overwhelmed at this point. Just a few of them left, 32 of them still fighting together. Let's see if we can find a significant pocket of them. Oh yeah, here we go. Still holding on. Face to face with the Sauron's will and a line of halberds. They're not giving up. Over on this end, though, the Temple Inquisitors pushing hard against all the remains of the Gondorian spear wall. And there you go. The encirclement is complete. With Temple Inquisitors in their rear, I don't think the Gondorians are going to be able to stand for very much longer. Let's go ahead and kick that up to 2 times now. I think that's all of the remaining Sons of the Argonath. Only about 18 of them left. Very brave, though. They looks like they've managed to reap a significant cost on the part of the Mordor armies. So hats off to the Gondorian player. This is definitely hats off to everybody, really. This is definitely a battle that I enjoyed watching. So it's the Argonath down to 9, and that's going to be it. Yeah, those Temple Inquisitors and the rest of the Mordor army closing in on the Citadel Guard and the Bodyguard. And that's going to be game over. 77 to 100%. That is very impressive. You have to give it to the defenders. They really, really did a great job, despite the fact that they were horrendously outnumbered. There was so many numbers on the part of the attackers that it would have been very, very difficult indeed, and required some serious mistakes on the part of the attackers in order to pull off a victory here, but damn did they do a spectacular job. And there you have it. Before we run out of time here, let's go ahead and let's just look. A little bit of a review of the carnage here. A lot of dead Isengarders there, and indeed a lot of dead Gondorians as well, but this battle was just all over the place. Final stand there. And my favorite, I have to say, was definitely the defenses that were set up by the remaining Dol Amroth and Umbar soldiers in this town square. That was damned cool. It's just a shame that Gondor wasn't able to get up there and help them. But just look at this. The defenders really put up a fight just about everywhere, and it's a lot of dead attackers as well. So let's go ahead, fast forward this. Pop over to this last stand here. I think that's all that remains of Gondor. Maybe they've got like a hidden unit or something down here that I'm missing. Nah, it's probably just a routing unit. And there you have it. Only an average victory for the attackers, and that's just because look at what they did. Dol Amroth especially, nearly 7,000 kills. Really get a sense of the scale of this battle. Like, oh my god, there's over like 14,000 or so dead attackers. Yeah, their numbers were definitely in like the low 20,000s or something like that. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this battle. I've got a whole bunch more coming out this week, and one of them is actually going to be on the official Age Reforged channel, and that's going to show off the city of Dol Amroth that WK has been working on for months, literally months. It is the culmination of many months of work on the part of WK, the map maker, and I think you guys will really enjoy that. But I also have a couple other other replays rather. One of them is from the RP. I believe it's the Fall of Isengard, which is really cool. Like the climactic final battle between Rohan and Isengard. And I've got another one as well. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy this, and I'll see you later. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.